Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm Mark Carbett, your host. And with me today, I have Mr. Ethan Smith of Locked On Pirates. That's right. He's part of those Locked On broadcasts you see across all the 30 teams across MLB. But Ethan gives a unique perspective about what's going on in the NL Central and most certainly with the Pirates. Welcome, Ethan. How you doing today, man?
Well, after the Pirates just won on a walk-off, you can't help but be good after beating the Cubs 3 out of 4. Oneil Cruz is finally up. A lot of these young guys are starting to make a real impact. So things kind of going in the right direction for Pittsburgh lately.
Yeah, Pittsburgh has been, a bit hasn't been where they wanted to be, I would say, as far as NL Central. And you've got a couple of guys above you guys who are just continually battling out the Cardinals and the Brewers. But the things have changed for when I look at Pittsburgh over the last few years. You're looking at let's take a quick look at the record, even just from last year. Last year, you guys, I guess, wrapped it up with about winning percentage of 377, and right now you're at 412. So that's, a good positive direction to be going into.
Oh, yeah, of course. And that's really all you can be looking forward to from this team right now is, again, they're not contending. You'll hear me talk about that all the time. They're not a contending team as of yet, but they're getting to that point. And a lot of that stems from the fact that you finally bring up arguably your best prospect in Oneil Cruz. A lot of your pitching has started to improve a ton as of late, and things just continue to move forward. And that's all you can really ask for out of this team is to just continue to move forward, see these young guys continue to get better. And that's more of what these years in between contention are about, is making sure that you're getting that core together again. Right now you have Bryan Hayes, Bryan Reynolds, Oneil Cruz is, I think, going to eventually stick himself in there as well. Michael Chavis, even another castaway from a contending team in the Boston Red Sox with the Tampa Bay hat. I'm sure you know enough about the Boston Red Sox. Don't need to talk about them.
Thank you.
But it's exciting stuff. And this Cubs series with Oneil Cruz and Bligh Madris coming up was, I think, just a peek at what the Pirates are trying to do in the future.
Well, to get there, like I said, the future, we don't all have an owner like Steve Cohen says, we're going to win right now. I'm going to spend millions of dollars and bring all these great players in and make a difference. A lot of us have to build things. Again, tracking some things as far as business with the Pirates, I've seen your farm system continue to grow, come up higher and higher in the rankings. A lot of things happened just a couple of years ago, though. A lot of this I thought started like around 2019 when some changes were made with the general manager.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course you move on from Neal Huntington, who had his good moments, of course, bringing the Pirates back to the postseason in 2013 through 2015, had his down moments, like the Chris Archer trade to Tampa Bay. And, it gets to the point where even now you're still seeing some of the players from his regime, like Oneil Cruz. He made that trade for Tony Watson to go to Los Angeles to get Oneil Cruz, not Ben Cherington. But Ben Cherington came in. I believe he came in with a plan. He wants to progress things forward. He wants to make things continue to move forward. And he's put an emphasis on putting these young guys on the field, letting them have their ups and downs. And that's something I don't think we've seen in a while. Of course, I wasn't alive to see it, but this team from 79 to the late 80s, early 90s had that big period where they didn't win. And then after that, they had that really long period until 2013 where they didn't win either. It takes time. And I know it's hard to be patient with an owner, as you said, that doesn't really spend money like that. But at some point, the talent's going to overtake that. And I think that's what we saw in 2013 with the likes of McCutchen, Neil Walker, Josh Harrison, Pedro Alvarez. Now you're just kind of moving into that next regime of Bryan Hayes, Reynolds, Cruz, Nick Gonzalez, Leover Peguero, etc. That list goes on and on as of right now until these guys prove themselves.
Well, I think you're absolutely right as far as building and getting there. As a fan, we're all anxious to see that all the way to the championship right now, but that's not always going to happen. The thing to do as a fan is to enjoy the game that you're there today for. Be out there and who you're seeing playing well, seeing those young people come up, seeing them hit that first home run, all of those things. Those are the exciting parts of the game to me. If I go in and I weigh heavily on my mind, oh my gosh, are we going to win the division? Are we going to get a wild card, et cetera? And I can tell you, being a Rays fan for many years, it really hurt a lot.
Yeah.
And I saw Eric Neander come in as the GM. I thought, oh my gosh, he's getting rid of Evan Longoria. Is this man nuts? I started questioning everything he was doing, but it took a few years before those things came to fruition. By the way, thank you for Tyler Glasnow and Austin Meadows. But and even that, you look at, we had Austin Meadows for a couple of years, and we traded him off to the Tigers. We get Isaac Paredes coming here. Other night, 3 home runs in one night. And another home run the next night. It's all comes from planning. It all comes from, planting the seed and being smart about the trade. So again, looking at some of the changes you had from the front office, not just Ben Cherington coming in. I want to talk in a minute about how he's brought some of these new guys up. But first, let's talk about your coach here. We got Derek Shelton.
Derek Shelton.
Yeah, man. Tell me a little bit about him.
Of course, I believe he was a former hitting coach in Minnesota, comes over 2020, the most terrible time to come over for your first year. So I think this year is kind of like the first time he's had like kind of a normal year. Last year was even still kind of in that COVID realm. And he has his moments where he, for lack of a better word, he kind of just messes up a pitching change or the lineups are a little weird, but again, he's also probably hearing from the front office about what he has to do as well. But I think he is managing pretty well in terms of the lineups he does create every so often. Nobody's lineups are going to be perfect every single day, especially with a team like this where everything right now is still a grain of salt compared to the bigger picture. And having Oneil Cruz, of course, helps build a lineup. And I'm liking what he's doing a lot. He has Bryan Hayes lead off a lot, which I think is a very good decision to have. Immediately follows it up with Bryan Reynolds. Immediately follows it up with Jack Suwinski or Michael Chavis. And you're starting to see a lot of these guys gel together a lot more. And I think that's one thing that you really need to see is these guys gel together a lot more. And you hear about it from the guys that are coming up now is it's like, well, we've been playing minor league baseball together for 3 years and now we're all together. You want to create that kind of atmosphere and culture on the MLB roster as well. So making that imperative, gelling these guys together, making lineups more consistent is something he can improve on, but that will also come with time as well.
Did you think some of these moves would happen sooner? Did you think you would see Cruz come up sooner than he did?
He should have came up sooner than he did, but we all know that salary manipulation and arbitration manipulation are a very real thing still in Major League Baseball and something that the Tampa Bay Rays even have used to their advantage. Something the Pirates, I believe, are even using to their advantage as well. So should he have been up here sooner? Of course. Is he now? Yes. But, I mean, I would have expected it sooner if that would have gotten changed in the CBA. And the same thing is going to happen for a lot of these other top guys as well, like Quinn Priester, Carmen Majinski, Nick Gonzalez, Liover Peguero. Those guys are going to get their service time manipulated just like Oneil Cruz did. But at the end of the day, 5-6 years down the road when they have yet another year of control on the guy, we're not even going to remember these couple months that we didn't get to see Oneil Cruz play.
There you go. And that's the truth. I know I'm looking right now and the Yankees, God forbid I mention her name, but Aaron Judge right now, he's coming up in arbitration, I think this Friday. It's his 6th year, man, before he's become a free agent. I think he did have a full, complete 6 years. They didn't manipulate him so much. I look at Joe Kelly, I think with the Cubs. I think he got manipulated. I was irate about that, but I realized these people are thinking, well, they're thinking from a mindset of a business person, and they're not thinking about the young man's career as a person, and they're not thinking about the fans. Mm-hmm. But that's me just being passionate and wouldn't put my finger in the front office too much, I guess. Yeah. And like you said, in the next few years, we won't even be thinking about that as far as Oneil Cruz goes. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more coming from him. Tell us just about the last few days, because that's when all this has been going on. Everything from looking at Oneil Cruz to Suwinski was performing even well just a couple of days before that. And Bligh Madris. Is it Bligh Madris?
That's Madris. I honestly, everybody's pronounced it about 6 different ways. It's all good as long as he keeps hitting the baseball. I don't think anybody's really going to care about how to pronounce his name. But I do. It is Madris. I believe it's Madris. That's what I use Baseball Reference for, as they tell you the pronunciations. But yeah, these last couple of days, I mean, they've won 4 out of their 5, or 4 out of 5 games. They beat the Cubs, which is something that I talked about on my episode yesterday about creating a stepping stone towards contending. And they're doing that right now by beating a team like the Cubs that they arguably should be beating with how Chicago is playing this year. They have a better record than them. And honestly, I didn't think I'd say this before the year started, but the Pirates are better than the Cubs are. They just flat out are. And of course, the Cubs are dealing with their own things, their own injuries. But I think the Wednesday game was definitely an outlier because Jared Eichhoff was just kind of a replacement for Zach Thompson, who's on the 15-day. We kind of all expected that to happen with him. I don't think anybody really put too much stock into that loss yesterday. It was mainly the Cubs just pushing back and the Pirates, just throwing a guy out there that has no future with the team anyway. At the end of the day, though, for me, this is what I would really say about it, is winning 4 out of 5 games is always a good thing. It doesn't matter who you're doing it against. Doesn't matter how you do it. And the Pirates did it really well. I mean, they scored 12 runs on Monday, 7 runs on Tuesday, and 8 runs on Thursday, which is just great. And you want that to happen because that's one thing the offense has been struggling a lot. And you want to take this kind of thing and use it with momentum. And whenever Oneil Cruz got called up, I said that this was going to be a major factor for this Pirates team, is that Madris and Cruz are going to implement a huge part of the offense into eventually like getting to the point where they're not scoring a run or 2 a game, and that's what you like to see. And that's what we got to see these last couple of days.
And, another thing about those young guys coming up, and to me that it's exciting. And even I was looking at something on MLB the other day with your DH Vogelbach, and he was saying, the hype, the quote is, the hype about Oneil is crazy. He's an unbelievable player. But it doesn't go unseen what Bligh has done very quietly up here. He said, what you can say under the radar, because he came up with Oneil. He had just unbelievable at bats. He played the heck out of defense in his 2 games out there. He does it quietly. You can tell he's a fire that wants to win, and those guys are contagious. And you want to be around those guys. That's the thing about it. This new blood, this new energy, if you will. I mean, that has to be sparking the rest of the team as also.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what you were looking for from these guys. And you see the Pirates, they've called up 12 new guys this year, all rookies. I mean, it's nuts. Cal Mitchell, Jack Suwinski, Tucupita Marcano, Diego Castillo, Hoy Park has been called up and down. Leover Peguero even got a game in there with Marcano going on the COVID IL this past weekend. Oneil Cruz, Jack Suwinski, who you mentioned earlier, Kanan Smith-Njigba before his injury that's going to probably sideline him for the rest of the year. The list goes on and on and on, and it's good. And I don't think anybody in Pittsburgh should be complaining because they're finally doing what they should have been doing all along. And what a lot of these teams or a lot of these fans of teams that are losing usually beg for, which is throw the young guys out there.
Yeah.
Like just throw them out there. Because would you rather watch, for lack of better comparison, would you rather watch Robinson Cano play for your team and hit 230, or would you rather watch Jack Suwinski play for your team as a rookie and hit 230?
Oh, yeah.
At least there's some optimism behind the 23-year-old hitting 230 and leading all MLB rookies in home runs. That's really what you want to see. Now, of course, the Pirates still have their fair share of veterans on this team. Chris Stratton in the bullpen is a veteran. Heath Hembry, before he got DFA'd, was a veteran. Yu Chang, who's bounced around now, probably on his last legs, is a veteran piece. Bryan Reynolds, even at this point, is a veteran piece. But when you're using these veteran pieces, like you mentioned, Daniel Vogelbach, he's made an impact as a DH. He really has. And I mean, that's what you want out of those guys, but you also want these young guys to have somebody to look up to, which is where I think Brian Hayes is going to come big into this because he's already kind of established himself as a leader. Bryan Reynolds kind of does the same thing. I want somebody to take charge and lead this team. Who's it going to be? I can't tell you that. Yeah, I might host a Locked On Pirates podcast, but I cannot tell you who's going to be the leader of this team for the next half decade. But somebody is going to have to do it. Andrew McCutchen did it for those 3 or 4 years that they were contending. Who's going to do it now? That's one of the biggest questions that you're going to see over the next couple of years, because without a leader, you're not going to get to that World Series contention point. You might make the playoffs, but do the Pirates really want to make the playoffs and then lose in the wild card again? Which, thank God, the wild card doesn't exist anymore, because I know Pirates fans love talking about the one-game playoff.
Oh, yeah. And as a Tampa Bay Rays fan, I got to tell you, I understand about the young people coming up. I cannot tell you how long us fans have been going out to the minor league games watching Wander Franco the last few years, say, when are they going to bring him up? When are they going to bring him up? And the excitement about that. The other part is I've been out there to the minor leagues. I'd seen Vidal Brujan. I'd been out there. There were some other ones that we had traded as well. And Taylor Walls, I saw him coming up and say, he's not here yet. And oh my gosh, we have Willie Adames doing shortstop. Where's he going to go? You guys know now, but good for him. We brought Franco in, and just all this new talent. It's a very exciting time for the team. Right now, the Rays, they're really kind of going through a hard time with some players that are out injury, and some of them just not performing like you'd like to see. But going back to what you were saying as far as leadership, we've had some great leaders on the team with the Rays. We had Charlie Morton. I mean, here's a guy, he's seasoned, he's quiet, and people listen and they learn when he does speak. We had Rich Hill, another seasoned pitcher, but also had a lot of respect from everybody on the team, and another quiet leader. Nelson Cruz, we had him for a little bit. Nelson did the same. And not to take anything away from the seasoned Corey Kluber, I don't think we have that same sort of energy that we had with those previous three gentlemen I just mentioned. So those are important pieces. The new energy of the young bloods coming up, plus some veterans who can kind of give some direction. And I don't know. Like I said, personally, I don't necessarily feel like the Rays have that this year. Maybe that's changing. We'll see. But the Pirates, to me, are the epitome of where that can go. So I'm excited for you guys. So Cubs, like you said, Cubs, I don't know what they're doing. Okay. I don't know what they've been doing since they won a World Series, for God's sakes. I talk with Sarah Sanchez sometimes from Bleed Cubby Blue podcast, and I know she's not happy. I don't call her as often as I used to because she's not happy when I call.
Yeah.
But it's tough. And I'm looking at the Reds. Good gravy, man. Who are these people? They had the MVP of the year. Was it, was it MVP or was it rookie?
Rookie of the year, Jonathan India.
Jonathan India. I saw him at a Louisville minor league game. They sent him down for hamstring injuries. But I'm looking at that team and I'm thinking, really, is this it? And I haven't looked at what they're spending salary-wise, but are you just trying to hang out with the Oakland A's down there in the basement, Reds? Are you just trying to find a way to be at the very bottom? I don't know. I don't think that some front offices are making a commitment to the team and the fans.
Yeah, and the thing that I loved about what you bring up about the Cubs and the Reds is they're most likely going to be sellers at the deadline, which should be music to the ears of Pirates fans for this one reason that I brought up before on the podcast a few weeks ago, is the Pirates are in a perfect spot right now. Albeit they're not contending at this current moment, but next year people are talking about, with the additions of a lot of these younger guys and maybe some off-season additions, that little cheap little spots to fill holes, the Reds and the Cubs aren't going to get any exponentially better over this calendar year. The Cardinals and the Brewers are going to always be like two pretty good teams. But if you're the Pirates, you're in third place with the team that you currently have constructed. Currently. That's not counting what Oneil Cruz is going to be like a year from now.
Oh, yeah.
What Jack Suwinski is going to be like a year from now. And then you're throwing Quinn Priester into the fold. You're throwing 2020 number 1 overall pick Henry Davis into the fold next year. Extra wild card spot, 2 teams below you that arguably aren't going to get any better by July 2023. And that's not to say the Pirates will be either, but there's a really better chance that they are than the 2 other teams that you mentioned. The Cardinals and the Brewers are going to be there. They are. But if you could tell me that the Pirates can have a winning record, be third place in the NL Central, and compete for a spot next year, is that really that crazy to think about?
I see it a very strong possibility. There's with what you guys have done, again, talking about the young bloods, but the energy is there. Talking about the energy, I wanted to part from specifically looking at players in front office for a moment. For a lot of baseball biz fans, I'd like to be able to give them an idea what it's like when they come to watch Pittsburgh, when they come to see the Pirates, when they come into the stadium. Can you give me a little bit about what that experience would be like?
Well, it's always fun trying to talk about that because I do live in Georgia, but I've been to PNC Park a lot of times. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, as I've told people before, but I mean, probably the most beautiful scene that you'll ever see. I mean, you got the bridge in the background with the entire city skyline. The stadium itself is great. You can get phenomenal food. They've done a ton of renovations lately to PNC Park as well, which is very nice. And I'm sure Tampa fans are probably also hoping that they have renovations coming to a stadium soon. But it's also great because, I mean, when the Pirates are winning, people go to the games. People go to the games anyway, but when they're winning, man, they sell that stadium out. And seeing a sold out PNC Park, if you guys ever want to see anything cool for everybody listening, and my Locked On Pirates listeners who are also listening already know I mention this from time to time, just go and watch the 2013 wildcard game against the Reds. It's probably the most cool thing you'd ever see. The Pirates, I mean, Russell Martin hits that home run off Cueto after he drops the ball on the mound, and you thought that place was going to rip apart. You really did. I mean, it's just a bunch of people going nuts. And at its core, I really think Pittsburgh could be a baseball city if the team was consistently good. Of course, you're competing with the Steelers and the Penguins, which shout out to Locked On Penguins, Lockdown Steelers, because those two teams are just, they got it. They got the stars, they got the wins, they got the rings, everything you need. But at the end of the day, the atmosphere is there. They just need the team to be where it can be, which is what we've alluded to already, contending for a wild card spot or even eventually contending for a World Series. We like to have a joke that the Pirates are the 2025 World Series champions around here. So we'll see how that works out for us.
Well, thanks kind of walking us through the park, because it is kind of a unique experience. I mean, so many times we're able to watch something on TV with it, but we're not able to get there. And PNC Park is definitely one on my list. So thank you for sharing that with us. And looking to the future, it's at that point where we're starting to get all the votes coming in from the All-Stars. And have you got somebody from the Pirates you picked that said, this is the guy who should be representing the Pirates during the All-Star game?
Probably Bednar, because I think he's just been a top 5 closer in all of baseball. As everybody knows, every team gets an all-star. So I've really kind of looked at a lot of the smaller teams and who's going to probably get it. Like for the Orioles, for instance, I think Austin Hayes will definitely get that nod for them. He's been absolutely phenomenal. For the Pirates, I think it's between Bednar and Hayes. Reynolds, beginning of the year, I think was just too slow for him. He's still only in like the 247 to 250 batting average range, which is not him. But I mean, over that 9-game road stand that they had where they lost 9 games in a row, he actually did very well. He was hitting 500 on the road stand. You'll take that all the time. But Hayes has been phenomenal. He leads all of baseball in offensive runs saved. But I do think David Bednar will be that guy just because he's been consistently on it out of the bullpen. 3 inning saves, something you don't usually get or hear that often. And he's just been that guy. And, of course, from Mars, PA, a local guy, can't go wrong with it. And I'd love to see Bednar as an all-star and hopefully see Bednar on this team when they're starting to contend again.
Well, I contend again, but like I said, I think you kind of are now. But we'll see how it rolls out for the rest of the season. I mean, obviously, like I said, you're doing better than you did last year overall, and you got a good team, man. So we'll see. Let's see what else. What are your expectations then for like the rest of this year? Do you see you guys above 500?
No. They're already 10 games under. I think anything, just don't lose 100 games again. That's really what I think that their main goal needs to be. But if they can get to 70 wins, which is something I think that's very possible for this group, especially if they keep them intact and stay healthy, 70 wins is like a very good benchmark for going into next year. We've seen teams jump from 70 to 75 wins to then a winning record the very next year, because sometimes all you're looking for is that one piece that changes everything. And the Pirates might have that in-house. They might have it out of house. You never know. And 70 wins, I think, is a good benchmark. They're 29-40 right now, I believe. Yeah, they're 29-40. So if I do my math correctly, I can't. How many games is that? That's 69 or 69 games. Is that 60 or is that 79 games?
No, you're 69, I believe.
Yeah, that's 69 games.
I mean, some other teams up to 71 games. You guys are still got some other ones to make up.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, if they can get to that number 70, I think that's good. I mean, going into the year, they were 65.5 over under. If they go over that, I think most people would be pretty happy with this team.
Going to take a kind of a step back too. I was looking at opening day and seeing who is no longer there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fun.
Yoshi's been out. Sasugo, he's been out, I guess, now for a while, and I don't know that we'll ever see him come back. Catching's been kind of catching's been kind of interesting for you guys too. I know there was that one game I was watching, and suddenly said, "Wait a minute, they got a position player doing catchers."
Yeah, Josh Van Meter.
Yeah, and was it Mikey Perez came up for a bit? Is he still with you guys?
He is still up, yes. Right now, the catcher situation is Tyler Heineman and Michael Perez. Beforehand, it was Roberto Perez, who they signed in the offseason. He's out for the year. You've seen Andrew Knapp even get some chances, but he's no longer here either. And I'm looking at that opening day lineup: Daniel Vogelbach, Michael Chavis, Reynolds, Hayes, Castillo, Tsutsugo, Van Meter, Kevin Newman. Then you also got Cole Tucker in there, who's no longer here. Yeah. Ben Gamble's on a rehab stint, Roberto Perez and White Park. So, yeah, since April, a lot has changed on this team for the better for the most part.
And we never know. Somebody who goes to Vegas and bets at the beginning of the year on what some of these teams are going to do and what they're going to look like, it is a big gamble. But, obviously Vogelbach, so he's obviously still with you guys. And, I mean, he's kind of a leader too. I mean, he's a little bit more longer in the tooth, but he's a leader of that team.
Daniel Vogelbach. Yeah, he was a free agent signing. He's done well. I think he's teaching some of these guys things, and it's fun to see him do his thing on the base pass every once in a while. Bigger guy, but he's got some speed behind him.
Yeah, I know. I used to look at him and Rowdy Tellez as two guys out there. I liked watching the big guys out there run the bases when they're doing well. Who is it? The guy from the Blue Jays. Was it
Alejandro Kirk?
Thank you, sir. Yeah. And I'm surprised to see the speed. I look at these guys, and they're much more athletic than what a person might think when they see them out there at the plate. But it's been going great, my friend. So let's see now. When we're looking then for the expectations of the season, we talked about what that's going to do. What do you want to see the front office do for the team that they haven't done yet?
Like this year or moving forward?
Let's look at moving forward.
Moving forward, I mean, realistically, you can kind of see where the holes are going to be for this team when they're contending, pitching being one of them. But whenever they were contending before, I mean, 2013 through 2015, Francisco Liriano, AJ Burnett. Who else did you have in there? Charlie Morton even was there for a little bit. So go find those guys like diamonds in the rough. Look at Tyler Anderson after he left this team last year. Doing phenomenal in LA.
Absolutely.
And I've heard people say they needed to keep him. And I'm like, no, it was the right thing to trade him. It was definitely the right thing to move on from him. And, that's all I'm really looking for. You always find those little unsung heroes and those unsung signings. I mean, look at the Braves last year who just won the World Series. Acuna goes down and they bring in 3 outfielders at the trade deadline. Everybody thinks they're dead in the water, including me. I thought they were too. And they go and win the World Series. I mean, you go again to mention the 2013 through 2015 teams. Russell Martin was a free agent pickup. Francisco Cervelli was another guy that came in later in the fold that was very good. You continuously see these guys. Marlon Byrd. I mean, you see all these names that I bring up, and it's like, not like a Hall of Famer or anything, but a good role player to sit around those guys like Oneil Cruz and Brian Hayes and those top guys on your team that supplement and ultimately in September might be the difference between you making the playoffs or not making it at all. So that's what I want to see the front office do. Add rather than subtract.
Add rather than subtract. That's a good strategy. Okay. We've been talking with Ethan, and that's Mr. Ethan Smith from looking at you at Twitter's at Locked On Parts. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, sir.
And, all right. And you got a daily broadcast Monday through Friday, so you can catch up with what's going on in the parts there. Any other final words you want to share with our audience here on Baseball Biz?
No. And also the audience from Locked On Pirates. So Baseball Biz and Locked On Pirates both going to kind of converge today. Really nice stuff. But yeah, make sure you guys come over here and follow this wonderful gentleman. Can't go wrong. Make sure you come over to my podcast as well if you're new. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Odyssey, Google Play, pretty much wherever you can find a podcast. We just reached 300 subscribers on YouTube the other day, which is awesome stuff. And of course, at MVP_Ethan is my main Twitter. You'll see the verified tag. I don't know how I got it, but I have it. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Okay, Ethan, man, I can't thank you enough for joining us and allowing me to be here on at Locked on the Pirates as well, man. It's been fun. Can't wait to see what's more's coming. And my gosh, like I said, looking at these new guys you got, it is inspiring. I mean, nothing but good things to come.
Yes, sir.
All right. I want to thank everyone for joining me today here on Baseball Biz. Remember, you can always find me, Mark, at the Baseball Biz on Twitter. You can also find Baseball Biz on all of the directories. We're talking about Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. If it's out there, we're there. Also, special thanks to Ethan Smith from Locked On Pirates podcast. It's great having him here today, and we look forward to talking with him too again real soon. Special thanks to X-Take RUX for the music rocking forward.
Yes, sir.